salam, marhaba. Welcome to the Habibis podcast, where we talk about video games, Arab stuff, and life stuff. I'm your host for the day, Fawzi Musmar.
And I'm Osama Dorias.
I'm Rami Ismail.
So, what have you guys been up to lately?
Ooh, well, it's been a week. I think I've had a pretty good week, honestly. I obviously played some games, although I didn't play much new this particular week. I think
What
um,
have you been playing?
I've mostly been playing Flight Simulator again. I don't know. I've been feeling somewhat tired. And Flight Simulator is really relaxing to me. I've actually been playing it on my live stream as well. I just set up a flight, get off the ground, and just leave it running for like 2 hours on autopilot, and I just sit there, just scrolling my phone with like airplane sounds, and it's been great.
Do you have like
That
a
sounds
list
so
of
relaxing.
destinations, like where you want to, where you go, or like you go through a list of stuff you want to do in this game, or every time you turn
It's
it up is a new thing?
it's kind of a different mood every time, you know? Like sometimes I'm just like, let's just fly Amsterdam to London. It's like 1 hour. I know exactly how to fly it. I know exactly how to handle the airport. I know every entryway, like air entryway and air. Um, I know every landing approach. So it's just chill. And every now and then I'm just like, I think recently I flew Singapore to Bali, and it just felt like watching islands, right? So I just did that. It was really nice.
Sounds so serene. So I don't know. I want to do that now. I have Flight Simulator. I've been playing it on and off since it came out,
I
but
will.
I don't seem to have the stories you have. I need to
I
find.
will teach you. I will
Yeah,
teach you how
yeah.
to
Like
do the proper flight stuff, because
give
that's
me
half
give me
of
a
the
list
story,
of
I think.
destinations and things. Because I did the
Right.
the traditional fly over my house thing. That was the first thing. Of course, I mean, I'm no different than 99% of the people who play the game. And then I did like the landmarks: fly over Paris, fly over New York, fly over Egypt, that kind of like over the pyramids, that kind of thing. And then I kind of stopped. And whenever I have an itch to go back, I just randomly jump to a location. But if you have a list of you must fly over these places, I'd definitely be all ears. I think
I
that'd
heard
be a
that.
Yeah.
great medium article, by the way, if you're interested.
I heard that they're releasing an F-16 to the game, the next update or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's a mod. One of the beautiful things about Flight Simulator is that it just has this huge modding community. So they've added all sorts of stuff to the game. The A320 that's in the game right now, there's a mod one that is much better. They're adding an F-16. Somebody added like carrier takeoff, so you can start flying from a carrier with a catapult.
Wow.
But somebody already modded in a hot air balloon and an X-wing as well, right? Like just
Hmm.
one of the beautiful things about flight simulator games is that they're really platforms more than games, and over the next few years, we'll see a lot of completely ridiculous stuff, including add-ons that allow you to pretend to be part of a major airline, which are played a little bit like EVE Online, where real people are setting up these flights and the flight plans, and real people play the ATC, um, and the companies have real money that gets earned with your actual simulated flights. Not that the companies earn real money, but like simulated money. Um,
Wild.
yeah, it's really interesting the amount of life that happens on a flight simulator game. But beyond that, I mean I play it for fun. And beyond that, I've been playing Destiny 2. I don't know. Do either of you play Destiny nowadays?
I finished Destiny, like the main content when it first released, and haven't played it since. And I actually tried to recover my account. I apparently missed the deadline by a week. So if I play, I
Mm.
have to start over, and that's really soured me on it. But it's my fault. I don't have anyone else to blame but myself. They had a few warnings, and I thought I had more time. Then I went in, and they're like, no. So I got to jump in at some point.
I think Forsaken was the last Destiny I played. It was a lot of fun, man. I really enjoyed that game. But yeah, just lots of other games came out since.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I just went back because I play it a lot throughout the past 5, 6, 7 years. Um, but I will say I took a little break from it before this last week, and the story kind of kicked back in. So I went back and I've just been grinding. And I don't know, Destiny grinding is like the most satisfying thing to me. Their movement and their action is so good that I don't care. You tell me to run circles for like 45 minutes, I'll be like, oh, that sounds fun. Let's
Hmm.
go. But that's kind of it. Beyond that, I haven't been playing much. My game of the year like lists are finished and sent to Giant Bomb, where they'll be published somewhere in the next few weeks.
Awesome.
I'm
Oh,
watching my mom play Ghost of Tsushima,
Oh,
and
I love that game.
that's kind of it.
that game is great.
Yeah. I
What
finished
about?
2 games recently.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
what
nice.
have you been playing, Osama?
So I finished Immortals: Phoenix Rising, which I didn't
Oh,
expect to finish.
Oh,
I thought I would play it over a longer period of time, but I don't know. One day I was motivated. I'm like, okay, let's see the ending. I actually really enjoyed the game. I could say some criticisms. The only thing I really well, two things, but they're kind of related. I liked the puzzle designs. I really did. I thought there were too many of them. Um, it felt like everything had to be gated by a puzzle. And there was one sequence in particular a little bit later in the game where it was like, no, you like it didn't feel like you had to finish a puzzle, but they actually gave you a prompt on the screen said, no, don't keep going until you finish this puzzle first. Like it felt like they put it there and like it wasn't intuitive for the player. It wasn't. I wasn't going to just skip it. I wanted to see the ending, and I actually got a text prompt on my screen. Then the second thing was the density. I didn't feel like there was any real discovery in the game because every 2 steps you encountered something. I think they took a lot of really good elements from Breath of the Wild, but they missed that one. It's too populated. Otherwise, I love the tone. I love the aesthetic. I love the combat. It's simple, but it worked. It's so satisfying to hit an enemy and see them like fly off the screen, regardless of how big they are. Like things like that really felt good.
the
And
balloon effect is great.
oh yeah, like there's a lot to love about the game. I think if they do a sequel, it's going to be phenomenal. I think they learn from it and they could move on.
Do you think the because I've wondered about this. I've once looked at designing an open world game before, and one of the things I always found interesting that a game like Just Cause, if you've played that one,
Yes.
it's also a relatively densely populated world. But I never got bothered by that. I think it's more about the intent of the pacing, right? You feel like in something like Immortals that there should be walking distances to
Yeah.
kind of like recover your mind and like slow down a bit and like get ready for your next combat. Well, I feel in Just Cause, like kind of the point was that you were always blowing stuff up, so it worked.
Yeah. I get it. I agree with you, and the aesthetic actually lends to it a little bit. Like if you can compare that to Far Cry, like Just Cause to Far Cry, uh, they have similar density, and yet for Far Cry it feels like too much, and for Just Cause it doesn't. Because Far Cry, you feel like it really has to, like it needs to be more realistic in its pacing. But like every 2 seconds you encounter something, like you can't really escape it. But Just Cause, like it's action movie, like the tone, so like you want that. So I agree with you 100%. I think it depends on the game, but like this game, it was too much. Like if you stand on a hill and look around, you'll see roaming monsters everywhere, and it didn't feel like they were like uh, uh they had any intent themselves. They were just clustered. Look, this is a group you could encounter, and then there's another group, and they're like laid about so that you can't go from one point to another without encountering something. I feel they need to be a little bit more brave and be like, you know what, enjoy the world, just go for a
Right,
bit, like just
right.
take it in. But it could be subjective. Maybe someone else will play it and be like, I love that I was never bored. There was never a dull moment. I was fighting all the way. There's player types as well. So it
Right.
might be
how
just me. But I really enjoyed like the down moments of Ghost of Tsushima as an example, or Breath of the Wild, where I'm like, I'm just going in that direction and I'm not encountering anything, but I'm taking in the scenery. Those moments are few and far between in Immortals.
how was the narrative structure of the game? Because like in Breath of the Wild, it was this non-linear parts of the story that you uncover on your own at your own pace. And if this game is kind of taking a lot of cues, it seems from Zelda, is it similar or does it follow a different narrative structure?
Completely different narrative structure. You have two voices in your ear literally throughout the entire game. And
Yeah,
I liked it actually. I don't know, Rami, you could speak to that. Maybe you had a
yeah.
different experience, but
the narrative conceit is kind of that Zeus goes to Prometheus to have Prometheus tell the story of how the gods get saved. So the two of them are basically telling your story as you go, and they kind of play with it, but it feels relatively linear to me. Like just you just go to this place, now you have to go to this place, and every now and then it's like go to one of these four places, right? Very similar to Breath of the Wild, but um, it feels like you have to go places. While in Breath of the Wild, you kind of end up going places. I think
Hmm.
that's one of the bigger differences in the game.
And as somebody who played both, Osama, do you feel that like a more guided experience versus a more open experience? Which was your fancy?
Open, definitely. But that's my default. I just actually that brings me to the second game I finished,
Uh-huh.
which is the Outer Wilds, not to be confused with the Outer Worlds. I don't know if either of you have played
What
that
year
game.
is this? This conversation sounds familiar.
This is from 2019, I think the game came out. But
Yeah.
have you
Right?
played it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
yeah.
okay,
You're
yeah.
Lego, Sam. Come join us. Come join the party.
Yeah.
Listen. I
Tell
have
us
a
about your
huge
experience.
I
No, no,
have
no.
a
Tell us.
huge backlog I'm trying to make my way through. And these are my months. January, February, there's not a lot being released, and I'm going to make it through all these Game of the Year
Samo,
games.
I want to hear what you think of the game. I don't want to hear you defend why you played it 2 years late. Tell me about the game.
We all have
It,
backlogs.
okay, so disclaimer, a friend poked me and said, "You're going to love this game, but you're going to hate the beginning, so bear through it." And that's exactly what happened for me. Because I like goals in my game. I don't need hand holding, but I need to have an objective. Otherwise, I'm like, what? This is just a sandbox. And the Outer Worlds at the beginning, it's like, okay, without trying to spoil anything, you're an alien, and then you're given a spaceship and go explore. And I was like, okay, where do I go? The incredible thing about it is that every step of the way, you're rewarded with knowledge. And then the more you know, the more you realize what you don't know, and you're missing these pieces of information. And my motivation grew exponentially after the first hour. I really wanted to connect the pieces. I actually was curious about um, what tied the bits of pieces of the story that I found together. All the planets were incredibly different one from the other. Every time I went one, my sense of wonder and discovery was through the roof. And on top of that, um, like what was really shocking was I was being rewarded kind of with tutorials. It's like if you discover this, we'll show you about a thing that existed from the beginning of the game that you had access to this entire time, but that you didn't know was there, and that will unlock like a piece of the puzzle that you were looking for. So I and the ending was so emotional, and I could talk about it forever. But I'm sure you've heard it. I know I'm late to the party, but that game, like, it's not very common that I play a game and I'm like, okay, this is a game that's changing my worldview on how to design games going forward. About like what is how like in this case specifically, it's about how knowledge can be a reward in and of itself, which it's something I knew, but I didn't internalize to this level.
I
It's
think that's
rare.
one
We
of the
don't get
most
that all the time.
original things about the concept in that game is that like the more you play it, the more you know, and therefore the more likely you are to play some more.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, it's also just like the thing that pushes a lot of people away is just it's kind of janky to control,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But it kind of I'm not going to go as far as say it becomes part of the charm because I definitely was still yelling at this,
Yeah.
the spaceship bumping
yeah,
into things when I was trying to go the other way.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but it kind of feels like the main struggle you have in the game is just the jankiness, and at some point the sense of pursuit overcomes the sense of jank, and you just kind of go like, yeah, no, okay, fine. I'll drive this broken down car to whatever the next place is where I can learn stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't play it long enough to master the controls, so even near the end of the game, I was like, I'm trying to get through this little hole. Why is it so hard?
there's literally no mastering the controls in that game. I genuinely do not believe anybody is good at controlling the spaceship. It's impossible.
I think aesthetically, there's like I think that's really one of the biggest areas in the game that I think it just puts a lot of people off just by how it looks, and I think a lot of people missed out on like a really fantastic game just by like how it presents itself in many ways, like how it controls, how it looks, like these kind of areas. If they would have finessed the like a little bit more finesse there, it's a gem of a game.
Agreed. Agreed. It became one of my favorite of all time. I like it gave me feelings I've never had from a game before.
Right.
Like
I don't know. It's funny because the game that it reminded me of was called Save the Date from like 2013, maybe 2014, early-ish indie. It was made by like Paper Dino, I think. Um, and then the game that first reminded me again of it was 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, which
Yeah.
has a very similar structure where reward like your reward is kind of knowledge and progress. Um, so I don't know, like it's been an interesting game. Outer Wilds, not Worlds.
Yeah.
And it's kind of set at the center of this very interesting experimentation with narrative structures around loops, right? Because that's really what it is. It's narrative structure around loops. I think Hades recently did really interesting work in that space as well.
agreed.
Just very different direction, but it's fun to see this new exploration of how can we tell stories around these shorter hops. But Fauzi, you don't get to escape this. We want to hear about your games as well.
As we're speaking a lot about Zelda, I've been actually playing Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity. I
Oh,
just started that recently.
my
But
uh, my girlfriend has been working on getting. I think she's beaten it, but
yeah,
she's now like trying to get 100% on everything.
yeah. Is she
It looks
playing
less fun.
alone? It's so much fun with another player. Are you joining her on
Oh
those sessions?
no, I had no idea that you could play it multiplayer. I've
I
been
didn't
playing
know
Flight
either.
Simulator. I've been playing Flight Simulator and Destiny.
No, there's couch co-op in this game, which I think it just makes
What?
it
Yeah,
so much like split screen. We're all like defeating mobs of moblins
I know she didn't. She didn't
all
tell
over
me.
the
I feel
map.
a little bad now.
It's
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's,
gonna
it's
bump it
fun.
on my list now. I could play
Yeah,
that with my kids.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
I was gonna. It's on my list anyway. I was gonna play it for sure. But wow, I didn't even realize.
I think your kids will get a kick out of it because like it's just like a lot of dumb fun, really. Uh, like uh, it's the usual like Moso warrior style game. There's a map. There's a lot of people for you to beat up, and then you gotta beat up a lot of people. And then there's like camps on different areas in the map in which you have to like go clear those maps and clear those camps. Sorry, until you beat the map. Then there's bosses, and you beat the bosses and stuff like that. But first of all, like this is in the Breath of the Wild art style the entire way through, which is just gorgeous to look at. Like this art style, I think, is just golden. Uh,
Hmm.
like ages really well, and I really appreciate the aesthetic of it. The characters control vastly different, and like their skill sets and stuff like that. How they do the combat, and they integrated a lot of the Breath of the Wild mechanics in like a combat way thing. Kind of in a very interesting way that I kind of appreciated. Um, Yeah, so far so good, and it's loads of fun to play with another person. Um, just
right.
a lot of fun.
I have to say, like, I'm so impressed by how those games, um, because they've done such different ones. They've done a Fire Emblem one. They've done
Yeah,
like two Zelda ones now, I think. Um, but the way they capture the games that they're referencing is really impressive. Because the Fire Emblem one genuinely felt like a Fire Emblem game, and the Zelda one, it genuinely feels like Breath of the Wild. Like I've played the demo only, but the interface feels different. The flurry attack counter feels
right.
feels similar. The world feels similar. It's just it's honestly it's super impressive. I just want to do. I want to see them do Dynasty Warriors with every
Yeah,
game IP I've ever
give them an
like.
IP and see what they
Yeah,
do with it.
just I want to see Need for Speed Dynasty Warriors, man. Like Flight Simulator,
Tetris.
Command and Conquer, Tetris. Yeah, bring it. Like I want to beat up like 700 Tetraminos, and like that's it. That's what I want.
Why stop there? They could go Smash Brothers and bring all of those into
Oh
one
my
game.
God, Smash
I
Bros.
think I think they
Dynasty
made the
Warriors.
Yakuza one. That was Japan only.
Oh,
No
there was a
way.
Yeah,
Yakuza one. What?
yeah.
Oh,
There's a Yakuza one that's Japan only, and it's like a Yakuza game that is also set in feudal Japan. It's a weird game. That must have been, I don't know, 2014 or something. But I think it
I
came
need to
out in
look this
Japan
up.
only.
Oh, that's interesting.
I
I
need to look
didn't.
this up.
Yeah,
That is wild.
that's wild. A Breath
Wow.
of the Wild. And
But yeah, so is there online multiplayer or is it really just couch?
I haven't tried to see if there's online just yet. I've only tried the couch, which is split screen. Um,
Right.
I kind of feel like my Switch is struggling a little bit sometimes. Like
Yeah.
there's literally
Yeah.
like a bunch of characters on screen, and then we put it on split screen. The frame rate drops a little bit every now and then.
That's
But
nothing. If you try to play Call of Duty, the new one, the Cold War split screen, it's completely broken and unplayable on PS5.
oh, is it
I
on
Yeah, I
PS5?
actually thought on PS5. Like you
Wow.
could play regular, no problem. As soon as you put it in split screen, characters disappear. The character models are gone. You just see floating guns. Parts of tanks are gone. Like it's just ridiculous. And I looked it up, and it's a known issue. Like I'm shocked the game released this way. It's almost 100% reproducibility. Like you get it the first match, it might be okay. The second match, for sure, it's broken.
I
Wow.
mean, let's at least agree that clearly Q like certification isn't doing the QA part of games anymore because
Yeah.
over the last few months we've seen a lot of games launch in states where you're like, well, I think certification used to be tighter, but
Yeah.
I mean, I guess as an indie, I have a lot more freedom to to say that, but um, but so no online multiplayer. Or
Yeah,
you didn't check. We should check the otherwise like when this whole
I haven't checked it. So like I'm still like very early on in the game. Just played up 3 or 4 maps and whatnot. But
uh,
it's loads of fun. I
when
mean,
when
like,
this when this whole COVID thing is over, we should play then.
yeah, man. I would love to like this one. What I like couch co-ops because you can have people over, and then yeah, like have people over. I miss that so much. Have people over for
Oh,
like
I miss
food or
that so
something,
much.
and
Right.
then just all sit on the couch and play some games. What I
Are
don't
are
what I don't
are
miss,
we?
however, is that if you're having people like Arab people over, there's a lot of added complexity to to asking them over. I don't know if
It's
you
not a
guys feel
simple
the
thing.
same way, but like if you're having an Arab guy over and they're like, "Should I bring anything?" You have to absolutely always say no, even
No.
if you
Yes,
want them to bring something.
Yeah, your fridge is empty. You have nothing in house. It is like no, no, no. It's good. I got this.
but
You
it's
have to
okay.
say no.
It's acceptable to hint at what you're missing. Like, no, no,
Right.
no, I got this. I just got to go to the store to pick up maybe some juice. I'll be okay. And you have to wait for them to make the offer,
Yeah,
right?
but then
Yeah.
like you make so much effort to tell the people like, no, no, we don't need everything. We have everything. You just bring yourself and all that, and then the
Yeah.
other person will always bring something anyway. Because if they don't bring something with them, you will judge them. You'll be like, can you believe this guy? He showed up
You
with
brought it up.
nothing, not even sweets.
Do, do you need anything else, Salamtek?
Yeah.
Just your greetings. Just your greetings.
Oh, it's
No,
perfect.
it's great. Are you also? My dad always explained it to me. What if a friend comes to visit the house, we clean the house. If a good friend comes to visit the house, we don't clean the house. Is that all? Is that also how it works for you guys? Or?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We have
Yeah,
we have 3 different types of tea glass sets,
yeah.
depending about how close that the people are coming in. They were like, my friend is coming over. Can I get the nice teas? I'm like, no, 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 no. Those are for
No,
guests. You give him the crappy ones, of course.
the chipped ones, the older nice tea, the old mugs that we had before. And there's an etiquette to how you drink tea as well, or eat food either. If you finish your cup of tea, you're asking for more. You have to
Right.
leave a little bit, just a little bit at the bottom. Otherwise, you're gonna get. They're like, "Wow, this guy really likes his tea."
I was
You won't stop asking for more.
I, I got in so much trouble when my girlfriend was visiting me, and she was meeting my dad, and I was obviously a little nervous about it. I'm always nervous about introducing a partner to my parents, um, and there was a plate with stuff that he had picked for her because she's vegetarian, Um, and it was further away from her than it was from me. And my dad just looked at me. He's like, "That's not how I raised you, Rami. Put the plate in front of, put your plate in front of the girl. What is this? You're not eating that. She's eating that. And if you eat that, you. What do you mean you're not eating that? Like that's not for you. Put it in front of her." And he was so. I was visiting a friend of mine in Casablanca, Khalil, and he he got his parents kept forgetting that I spoke Arabic. I think so. They would give him shit in Arabic for like not like at some point the tea ran out, and it was just like Khalil, go get tea. There's no tea. That's not how I raised you. And I'm just sitting there being like, oh boy, poor Khalil, poor Khalil. Um, but it was really lovely. It's a very warm sense of hospitality, right? The Arab
Absolutely.
hospitality. It's one of my favorite things. Is you can meet somebody and feel like friends pretty quickly, honestly.
I'd love to tell you the story if I can about when I went to Iraq. Okay, so I'll tell you the shorter version of the story. My sister went to visit my family in Iraq, and she really wanted to see a camel. Like she, we grew up here. We went to Iraq, visited a few times, but we never lived there for like we. She left when she was like 30 days old, like super super young. And what happened was she really wanted to see a camel. They they were like, "Oh, don't worry. We see them by the side of the road, the Bedouins, all the time. Well, when we see one, we'll flag it down and we'll go, introduce you to the Bedouins. They're really hospitable people. They're the best. You're gonna love them." But that never happened. She was there for 30 days, and it just like for some reason for her it didn't happen, even though it was super common. So when I showed up, I went to visit like months later. They're like, "Oh, don't worry, we're gonna show you camels," and I'm like, "I don't really care." They're like, "No, no, no, don't worry, it's gonna happen this time, I promise." They're like, "Okay, fine." So while we were traveling from one city to the next, literally like in the horizon, you see a string of little shadows. Like you see the Bedouins and the camels in the distance, and they veer off the road and drive on the sand all the way to this. I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, this is Iraq, right? Like you're gonna be scaring these poor people. Like no, don't worry, they're super hospitable. They're gonna be fine. This happens all the time. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'll play along because they're my cousins, and I guess they know better. This is their country, right? We stop right next to the Bedouins. We get out of the car. I see that the father figure guy. He's a little bit nervous, but not too much. Like he's like my sons. What can I do for you? And then they said was our cousin lives in a foreign land and he wants to see your camels. And his face lit up and he had
Right.
this huge smile on his face and he takes me by the hand and he walks me from camel to camel telling me their names and which one parented which camel and a little bit
Wow.
about their personality, and he's showing this level of love for them that I didn't think was possible. Like they're family, they're not pets, they're family. But then he turns around and he asks me, "Have you eaten camel meat?" And I just like, like, wait, what? He's like, "Yeah, have you eaten camel meat?" I'm like, "No, I've never had it before." And he's like, "Okay," and he points to one. He's like, "That one." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? You're just talking about
Oh
it. You told
no!
me its name." And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Yes, you're my guest." And my cousins are like, "Yeah, he's offering. You can't say no." I'm like, "No, I
Oh,
Oh
can't.
no!
I can't say yes." And we went back and forth for a while, and you can see he was upset because he
right.
just
Yeah.
offered me,
A
that
camel.
the camel. Like this is, and it was like 1/20th of his wealth. Like I look around and
Right.
everything they own is here, and he has like less than 20 camels, and he just said he was going to slaughter one for a perfect stranger from a foreign land. Like
Right.
that's the level of hospitality we're talking about. He was going to
Right.
stop whatever he was doing, wherever they were going. They were going to set up camp, slaughter a camel that he has a name for, and just that I've never like I was at the verge of tears, and I still couldn't bring myself to say yes. I regret it. I won't lie because it would have
Oh,
made him happy, but at the
right.
time I was just like shocked by the whole thing.
Yeah, I can
Wow.
imagine. I know I don't have a story quite like that. The one I always remember is I was in Sweden and it was Ramadan, right? And so it's the you don't eat from sunrise, eat or drink from sunrise to sunset. Um, and it was the north of Sweden, so the days were like from 11 p.m. is sunrise, right? And like ten p.m. is sunset. So you've got like 2 hours to eat or something. Um, and it was wild because I got there and I wasn't ready for that. So I was walking through this tiny city in the north of Sweden, and I'm just like, please let there be a pizza place that's open, right? Because I had just arrived. The hotel didn't have room service. There was no way for me to get food anywhere. Um, I was walking around the city, and everything is dark. It's a small city. Nothing is open, and I come across this one pizzeria, right? And there's light out there, but the sign says closed, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm hungry. Like I'm not gonna be able to fast if I don't eat. So I knock on the door, and some guy opens, and he's like, "What do you want?" I'm like, in Swedish, I presume, and I'm just like, oh, "I'm sorry, I'm a foreigner. I just want some food." He's like, "No, we're closed." I'm like, "No, no, listen, so." It's Ramadan and I can't eat. And he's like, "Oh, you're Muslim. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Have a seat." Uh,
He
and
understood.
he he just sat down, and there were like 30 Muslims. The entire city was there. Every Muslim in the city was there eating at that one pizzeria together, and they just had this huge table with like lots of food and balah, like dates came out, and like all sorts of traditional foods. And I ate, and then at the end, I said like, so you know, what do I owe you? He's like, and he looked at me. He's like, "What do you mean? What do you owe me? Come back tomorrow. That's what you owe me." Like I can do that. So
Wow.
I ate there 3 days. Breakfast
Wow.
and dinner was the same time. So we just had the one meal. I went there 3 days, and then on the last day, I told them thank you, and they said, "If you're ever back, come visit us again." I sent them a card. That's the only thing that they allowed me to do, was send them a card with thank you.
That's
That was it.
incredible. That's a beautiful story.
Right. It was. Yeah. It was something. I don't know. Like I always deeply appreciate that sense of being at home with other Arab or Middle Eastern people. Like it's a certain etiquette and a certain rule set that makes sense to me, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't
It's
know. Do you think other coaches have, like, I'm sure other coaches have that. I just don't. I wouldn't, because I'm also half Western, but I wouldn't be able to tell you how Dutch hospitality works.
so here I could tell you in Quebec, people are always confused when we go out to lunch and I offer to foot the bill. I'm like, oh, it's on me this
Oh,
time, and it takes a while of them getting to know me to realize this is just who I am. A lot of like times people look at me with I noticed it. People who I don't know super well that I offer to pay the bill will look at me with suspicion. Why? What do you want?
right,
What are you going to ask for now? And it's not that it's bad. Like it's not that they're bad people or not generous or anything like that. It's just that that's just not how it's done. There's a
right,
certain, you order something, you pay for it. It's fair. That's what's fair. If you try to break that fairness, then you must want something else so that you could go back to equilibrium. So you could go back to equality, right? That's
right,
how it works.
right, right, right. I mean, I don't know. Like it feels hard for me to argue about the bill very frequently, because like in the Arab world, you have to argue pretty hard, right? You have to go, no, 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 I got this, I got this. No, 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 I got this. But then when you're here in the West, and you're kind of like, um, you go like, no, no, I got this. People are like, no, we're gonna split, and you have to go like, but no, I got this, and they're like, no, we're gonna split, and you end up in like a weird argument about who gets to pay the bill. Well,
Yes.
in the Arab world, it is a weird argument, but at least we all agree one person is going to pay the bill,
Yeah, me
right?
and my
Like,
me
it's
and
not
my brother-in-law were always like we're trying to one up each other every time we go to a restaurant. Like we're sneaking before it's time so we could pretend we're going to the bathroom, but we pay the bill for the other before. And it's like
right.
it's like loving, you know. It's a I value you so much. I would like to feed you. You know, I would like to pay your
I,
bill.
wa-
It's not insulting.
I mean,
I
the two
once got a
parts in you must be at odds with that, right? Because you either want to go Dutch or go Egyptian on this one.
right, right, and it's impossible to figure. And like the Dutch aren't even the worst at that, because like the Swedes, uh, the the people in the Nordics, they actually have like mental calculators. I think they remember exactly how much money is still out, and they calculate stuff like by heart. It's incredible. The Dutch just kind of go like, we should split this, and then the phones come out and they start calculating, and at the end it's like, okay, I owe 17 something. It's like, what are you talking about? I'll just pay for the whole thing.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, but no. Um, I don't know. Like the funniest story I have with that is probably when I got in trouble with a Japanese executive. So Shuhei Yoshida works at Sony, Sony Computer Entertainment, and used to be, I don't know exactly what, I think he was head of first party. Um,
He was
I
head of
would,
Worldwide Studios at some point as well.
yeah, he was worldwide. He was head of worldwide at that point. Um, and we would go to a restaurant in LA for sushi. It started years ago just by accident, and then I always bring a few good friends and some indies that I've met throughout an event. So I try to bring like 8 or 9 different people, different backgrounds, different places in the industry to these dinners, and um, and Shu loved the dinner. He loved getting to meet all these indies and all these people. So we decided next year, the next E3, we'll do it again, right? Um, so at the end of the dinner, I tend to pay for these dinners, right? They're my dinners. They're sort of like Rami's like indie dinner. So I insist on paying. The problem is in Japanese culture, it's not
Oh,
the person who invites you who pays; it's the most senior person
yeah.
who pays.
I was about
Oh.
to say, yeah, that's a clash
This
right there.
became a problem
Yeah.
because to Shuhei, me paying seemed like me telling him I was more important, and to me, Shuhei paying seemed like I was letting a guest pay for my dinner. So it turned into this weird standoff where every year we try to like beat each other at paying. And it went as far as one time I tried to pay and he had called ahead and paid for the dinner. so
That's wow. That's
so
next level.
over the years it went from like, one of us going to the bathroom to pay to like when we get into the restaurant we're like paying. Like in the end there's like, okay, no, we'll just take turns or something, it'll be fine.
And I made that mistake of like paying for dinner once for my Japanese colleague, and it was also like the reflex bill here. Oh, it's on me. It's fine. And th-
Yes.
they were like very shocked and all of this stuff. And then for a week, that colleague was bringing me like different types of gifts every day. I was like, because you
Right.
paid for dinner the other day. Here's this. You paid for dinner the other day. Here's that. I'm like, this is literally like 4 times what I paid. Like
Yeah.
the amount of
but
gifts
that
that
was
you were bringing back.
but that was the point, right? Like it was more than you paid.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, it's funny when those things collide, especially in cultures with like strong sense of etiquette. Because I think in the Netherlands they just go like, okay, fine, you pay, yeah, that sounds good to me. Um, like that's the other thing when you when you're arguing like, no, 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 I got this, and they go like, okay, you're like, what?
Yeah.
No, no, wait, no,
Oh, I was expecting. I was expecting somebody to resist a little bit.
Yeah, there's a dance. You're not dancing.
yeah. Oh,
Wonder if we can
yeah.
make a game about something like that, like the different etiquettes of of dodging a bill.
I mean, it feels like any standard card bluffing game where you're just like, no,
Yeah.
no, no, I got this, and then somebody else goes like, okay, and you're like, but
It's
what do you mean you got like, okay, what do you go? I got this.
No, you're supposed like you need to earn some points by doing the dance, and then you need to stop while you're ahead. So like dance,
Oh,
dance, dance, and then you stick the bill to someone.
did you? I once couldn't stop laughing at my dad, my Egyptian dad, because him and an uncle, and this is not an actual uncle; it's a friend of the family, but they're just called uncle because they're a friend of the family, right?
Yeah.
yep.
And they both started arguing at who was going to host a Ramadan food at the end of a night. Like, and they're like, my dad was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, you should come over. You should come over. We'll have food." And I'm like, "No, no, you should come to me. You should come to me." And it's like this went for like 25 minutes, and I'm just standing there as a 6-year-old, just being like, "You guys, we'll go to a restaurant. Like it's fine. What are you like? What are we arguing? It's probably going to be better food." And both of them just look at me and like, "Rami, shut
Better
up." I'm
food.
like, uh, "Yeah, it's good. It's such a, I don't know. I wonder how intimidating it is to people that aren't from our culture to sit between. Can you imagine like somebody came out to dinner with the three of us, and at the end, the three of us start fighting about the bill, and this other person just be like, "What is happening?"
But you also need to like super commit right
Right?
into the fight. So you go like, "Don't pay. Wallahi, I'll get angry.
Yeah,
Wallahi."
yeah,
I like
That's-
you're like, "No, no, it's on me." You're like, "Wallah, you insult me. You insult
yeah.
my entire family."
I
you'll
could
get the
pay
next
for
one.
like,
Is
yeah. Well, that's the right way out, but you don't get to do that early, right? You have
no,
to
no,
wait a
no.
little. That's like your
Absolutely.
fourth or fifth.
You have to
And
It's
it
like,
fight.
doesn't
okay,
mean that the next one they're going to say, okay, last time you said I
no,
paid for
we
this one.
pay
No,
about
that's another
we
fight.
fight about that one too, right?
You
But
have
like, yeah, it's a part where like the insults and the honor and the
yeah.
like anger comes out. That's really good. Like, no, you can't. Like, come on, like for my like, we're friends. Like, you have to give me this. You have to give me this, and
I
it's
think
just like,
every one of those like statements are enough to terrify most people. Go like, if you do this, you'll insult me. But to an airport, people are like, no, I'm going to continue to insist on whatever you said is going to insult you because
we're gonna go 3 more rounds, yo.
yeah,
Like, we gotta.
I have a strong suspicion that this came from allowing people a way out from like people who don't have the means to be able to participate and still like feel like they tried to pay and then they back down first. So I think it potentially evolved from that because that's
right.
the spirit of what it is. You know what I mean?
You're
In
probably
the
right.
end, the people who can pay it will pay it, right? Because
Exactly.
they'll just keep going until it's done, and the people who can't pay it, they'll back off after 3 times, as agreed upon in the unspoken laws of Arab like discussion about bills.
Yes.
Uh, but yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. And inviting people to your house, it's still like everybody has the fancy teacups, right? And
Yes.
you're serving tea and some snacks. So even if you don't have a lot of money, you can generally receive people in that state. And nobody cares about the house as long as there's 2 chairs to sit and talk,
Exactly.
right? Like that's it. It's the tea that matters, and the tea is good. It's tea. It's shay.
It's
Come on,
key. Exactly.
you
No,
don't
it's a
mess that up,
beautiful thing. I love it. It's kind of brings everybody at the same level.
right?
I
Yeah,
can't,
no, it's
I can't,
no.
I can't wait till I have you guys over at some point and
I'm looking forward to it.
to
You're gonna
serve
you're
you
gonna use the good
tea.
teacups, right?
Yeah.
Right. Fauzi, should I bring anything?
No, of course not. We have everything. What are
No.
you trying to say? Just bring yourself.
Uh,
Sweets it is.
Sweets it is. All right. I guess that's it for our show for today. Thank you very much for joining us. We do the Habibis podcast every other time, inshallah, and
Inshallah.
we release it on all of your favorite podcast channels. Inshallah, you'll find it there.
Inshallah.
uh,
ev-
uh,
everything is inshallah with this.
Everything, inshallah. We tried to keep it to a fixed time. We're getting better at this.
Yes. One step at a time.
Good.
All right.
Yeah, I was Rami. You can find me on Twitter, DHA_Rami, or here on the podcast.
Osama Dorius, you could find me at Osama Dorius on Twitter as well.
And I was your host for today, Fawzi Mesmar. You can find me at Fawzi Mesmar. We'll put the links somewhere, inshallah, so that you
Inshallah.
can find it. Yeah,
Inshallah.
so you can find us. All right.
Bye.
Salam.
Salam.